What you are about to see is a videotape of a teenager attempting to get in a school. A threat thwarted. This teen was arrested. It was arrested in Wisconsin for terroristic threats at an elementary school, according to the cops. Let's take a look.
A terrifying situation thwarted. Surveillance video shows a teenager attempting to get inside an elementary school in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Thanks to the safety measures we have in place and the quick response of our trained school staff, the threat was stopped before they could enter the school portion of the building and cause any harm.
Police say the 13-year-old tried to gain access to the building through the locked side doors and was stopped as he headed for the front entrance.
We are thankful for our staff, who bravely stopped the individual and asked questions that caused the individual to question their choices and flee.
Police say they did not find any real guns inside the home, rather these airsoft replica handguns and a replica rifle. During an interview with the teen, police say the suspect claimed to have gone to the school to sell candy. He later told a social worker that he went to the school with the intent to scare students. The teen was arrested and charged with making a terrorist threat. This is Inside Edition Digital.
Where are the parents? We gotta hold them responsible. You're wasting police's time. But if this wasn't real, we wouldn't even be here right now. But what beat this bro got with elementary kids? The suspect claimed to have gone to school to sell candy. He later told a social worker he intended to scare students. Teen society, bring back the bullying. Bully's victim. This is an example of kids having to go to school in these dangerous times. School staff was smart enough to stop him from carrying out something so despicable. His parents need to be charged with raising a monster. That could work, but we need to find the parents. Find them. Not find, fine. As in them paying a fine. Does that make sense? It makes sense to everybody. You know, we have to hold parents accountable for what's going on. If we don't, then you know what's going to happen if we don't? Everybody's going to keep doing everything, you know. It may be a joke, but it may be a joke to you and me, but it isn't a joke. This is real. We've had school shootings throughout all these years. We've had Columbine, Sandy Hook, Jonesboro. There was Uvalde. And what are we going to do right now? Why aren't we holding parents accountable? According to this person's comment, everyone's like saying, not every parent is perfect, you know. I mean, Robb Elementary. You know, state legislation says, hey, you know, you shouldn't be doing this. Nobody should ever be threatening it. Should ever go into a school with a gun. Nobody should. And if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be here. Here's common sense. Don't bring a gun to school, otherwise you're going to jail.
Welcome. You've got mail. You've got pictures. File's done. Goodbye.
Remember those sounds from years ago? Well, the voice behind that voice is none other than the name of Elwood Edwards. He passed away at the age of 74. Take a look.
Elwood Edwards, the original voice of AOL, has died. People who remember the early days of the internet recognize this voice.
You've got mail.
Edwards said his wife, who in 1989 worked for the computer company that later became America Online, volunteered his voice for a new project with a cassette tape recording.
So I went on to record, welcome, you've got mail. File's done, goodbye. And what started off as a test has continued to this day.
For those now iconic lines, he only received $200. Back in 2016, as Edwards was making extra money driving an Uber, he told Inside Edition,
Everywhere I go, people say, you get residuals? Do you make a lot of money from it? And the question is always answered with no.
he didn't receive much money, but he did have an early form of internet fame. Edwards charmed the audience in 2013 with Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show.
So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the actual guy who recorded the You've Got Mail sound for AOL, Elwood Edwards, everybody!
And he made fun of himself on an episode of The Simpsons.
Diagnosed.
You've got leprosy.
Ohio's WKYC News, where Edwards worked as a computer operator and studio tech for many years, announced his passing following a long illness. Elwood Hughes Edwards died the day before his 75th birthday.
Wow. Just wow. I got nothing better to say. Next, a one-on-one on how Maryland's only 5-star high poverty school finds success. Please stay with us. Imagine your school only having a 5-star rating, 5-star high poverty rating because of high poverty. Because as we all know, every school has challenges in educating children both inside and outside the classroom. But it's how each school handles these challenges that sets them apart. It's not you're going to meet a principal that knows her school in the county that she lives in. Take a look.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
Principal Dana McCauley
Look at old Jimmy.
knows her school, Crellin Elementary,
Hey girls. Hi. You hungry?
is unique.
All right, Tal, back up.
Woochie woochie.
Or you could say scoochie woochie. Yeah, that's another way.
So the kids have a stake in this school.
Oh, yes. So they're responsible for, there's many chores that need done around here. Many chores.
Kids do chores.
They do chores, yes. There's all the barn work that needs done. The stalls have to be cleaned. The animals need fed and watered every day. The eggs need collected.
I think that's enough. They're both filled.
How does that translate to educational success?
Well, this is their place. They're invested in it.
McCauley knows Crellin Elementary is Maryland's westernmost school, just about a mile from West Virginia.
Go get one. You can get one hen.
Okay.
She knows it's likely the only one in the state
Under her wing. There you go. Around her belly, around her chest.
where elementary students walk chickens at recess. But what Project Baltimore just told her,
Thank you.
which could be Crellin's most unique trait, she did not know.
What did you think when I told you?
Did I say sure? I didn't know that. I just didn't. I thought, oh wow.
What comes next?
Crellin is a Title I school, meaning it has a high concentration of students living in poverty. Maryland has more than 1,400 public schools. 464 are considered Title I. Of those 464, Crellin is the only one that earns a 5-star rating for educational excellence from the Maryland State Department of Education, the state's highest designation. So how did that happen? The story begins 23 years ago. McCauley has been leading Crellin Elementary since 2001, not just as its principal,
We're working on multiplication.
but also as a teacher. And it was in that role
4 times 7 is?
that 23 years ago,
Another, say it. 28.
she made a life-changing discovery.
I remember my first year here, sitting in class and watching some of the kids, right? And then going outside with them, going down to the stream, and watching some of our squirreliest kids in the classroom thrive. And I thought, there's got to be something to this.
Soon after, Macaulay learned Crellin sits on the polluted land of an abandoned coal mine, where acid mine drainage has colored the rocks orange. At first, first. To Macaulay, that seemed like a big problem. But it was within these rocks that she had an idea.
Sometimes it's good to not know what you don't know. That makes sense? So you're not afraid of the obstacles because you're not even aware of what they might be.
On a whim, Macaulay gathered community support.
Good morning.
And petitioned Garrett County, which awarded her school ownership of a 6-acre site of the mine to clean up. That was the moment Krellen's unique story began.
We took the walls down to the school and opened it up to the community. So the community is part of our school.
Over the next few years, that community, the students, staff, parents, and neighbors, worked to restore the land. Today,
so this becomes a whole other ecosystem that we can teach kids about.
There's thriving wetlands, a hemlock forest, and a trout stream, all made possible by a limestone retention pond the school built to naturally filter and clean the acid mine drainage.
Pretty peaceful back here.
Once the school had fully reclaimed the 6 acres,
so this was our community garden that we plant every year.
Macaulay expanded her vision.
We are picking up these tomatoes so the chickens can eat them.
Maryland does not have sanctioned agricultural programs for elementary schools. So in 2013, Macaulay just started her own. Today, Krellen has an apple orchard, greenhouse, vegetable garden, and multiple barns with goats, sheep, and those chickens.
One of our dads built the hen house, and another dad who does fencing for a living came and put this on for us.
All of it built and maintained by the school community.
Put that in the black one.
Including the students.
But we're always looking for something, because we check on the hives to make sure they are healthy.
You see, where the students work is also where they learn.
You can pass that around.
This classroom amphitheater is built from a giant pile of coal covered in dirt.
It's a perfect example of our hydrosphere living with our biosphere.
Classes held in the greenhouse all winter long.
It's much easier to teach somebody who wants to be taught than somebody who doesn't want to be taught. And these kids want to do these things.
Krellen is a public school, but Macaulay said no public education dollars were used for any of this.
They're going to be curious. They're going to hang around. They're going to want to know why all these people in these big old white suits are down here.
Over 23 years, Macaulay has applied for dozens of local, state, and federal reclamation and agricultural grants. She won most of them.
We usually start with an N so we can move them around.
Collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars for the school.
That beautiful Cap Tony.
And its many projects.
Applying for grants is hard.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It is.
Work that over 2 decades has culminated in Krellen's 5-star rating, which makes this school one of one in our state.
Is what you're doing here, could it be done at any school?
I think it become different because this is unique to our community. Because it's not about the stream. It's not about the stream. It's about those who help make that all possible, coming together and making it all possible. That's what it's about.
Krellen Elementary's approach to education is certainly unique, and it does appear to be working. But are government leaders doing enough to promote more outside-of-the-box approaches to educating students? We'll take that question to city, county, and state leaders. But in the meantime, we want to hear from you. What is your child's school doing that is unique in how it's educating its students? Call our hotline, send me an email, follow us on social media. Head to foxbaltimore.com to follow our progress. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
I'm Kai Jack.
Wow. Everybody has some thoughts about this. This woman's a hero. God bless her and the community to work with her. Okay? You also need to buy it from the students and parents. Sounds great. It just shows that all these other schools have a culture problem. So yeah, I think she's a hero. She does whatever she wants to do is right. There's no need to be raising the bar and saying what she's doing here is wrong. She is a hero of this community, and we're proud of her to do that for Project Baltimore. Up next, could you ever set your child up to fail? How has Maryland changed for setting them up for failure? are they setting students up for failure or setting them up for success? You'll hear one of the stories when we come back. Stay with us. There's probably like an old saying that we're setting our kids up for failure. But if that were to happen, you know, we would be doing a talk show like this, like from Jerry Springer. And I'd be like from Maury Povich, and be like, what do you think? Are we setting kids up for failure? But the thing we gotta understand here is this: if we're setting our kids up for failure, we're not preparing them for graduation. It's like the old saying, you know, how is this, that, and the third going to help out my child? Or how is this, that, and the third? How is this going to help my child? If it's going to help out your child, you need to understand the rules of the playing up here. Well, according to the State Department of Education, they have changed high school graduation requirements. It says to help more students earn diplomas, but some say the changes could be setting them up for failure. The question is, are we setting kids up for failure, or is it the school's fault, or the parents' fault? You'd be the judge.
Graduation day.
It's a proud day.
For Desmond Stinney's youngest daughter.
Today's a big day.
One certainly filled with pride, but also worry.
I just kind of want to get through it.
You see, 3 years ago, in 2020, Stinney celebrated the high school graduation of his oldest daughter, Xaviera.
Our prize cadet here. We're so proud of her.
An honor student, soccer star, and graduate of Baltimore Polytechnic Institute.
She's accomplishing so much more than her old man at such a young age.
Xaviera didn't just graduate from any city high school. She went to one of the best. In 2020, Poly had a graduation rate greater than 95%, one of the highest in Maryland. 77% of students tested scored proficient in English that year. 54% scored proficient in math. Both the best scores in the city.
Did you think she was prepared to go to a military academy?
Absolutely. There was no indication that she wasn't.
But soon after graduation, this father watched his daughter's bright future nearly fall apart. Xaviera enrolled as a cadet into one of the United States military academies. But Stinney says when she got there, she quickly fell behind and was placed on academic probation. She was in danger of failing out of college.
That was the moment we realized that the foundation wasn't built at all. And we had a very false sense of superiority having the grades that we had.
Stinney says the academy had to create a special math remediation course to help his daughter stay in school.
We never thought basic math would be the stress in her life for those 16 months that she was on academic probation.
Xaviera is now off academic probation and is doing well. But Stinney worries about the other students, including his younger daughter.
We could see the finish line.
Especially after he learned Maryland has changed its graduation requirements, a change he fears could result in more graduates not being prepared.
I think that's counterproductive. I think if we lower our standards, I think that's at the detriment of the children.
In 2019, the year prior to the pandemic, to receive a high school diploma, Maryland students had 3 graduation requirements: earn 21 credits, complete 75 service hours, and pass state assessments in the 4 main subjects. From 2020 to 2023, students no longer had to pass state assessments to graduate. They just needed to take them. And next year, new standards take effect again. For a majority of the class of 2024, Maryland students will only have 2 requirements to graduate: 21 credits and 75 service hours. State assessments will now count for 20% of their final grade for that subject, meaning students won't have to pass the state test to graduate. In 2025, the state is expected to change requirements again. Most graduating seniors will likely need 22 credits to graduate, but again, state assessments will only count for 20% of the final grade.
Do you think this is lowering the standards?
Well, anytime you got to do less to get to the same result, I think you're taking a hit on your standards.
The Maryland State Department of Education will not interview with Project Baltimore, but told us in a statement that change was made because high-stakes exit exams disproportionately and negatively impact minority and economically disadvantaged students, reducing their likelihood of graduating from high school. The statement continued to say, a student's course grade is a stronger predictor of college and career success than performance on standardized assessments.
I think we're setting them up to fail.
But graduation rates will probably go up because there's fewer requirements to graduate.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about that false sense of superiority. We thought we were ready, and then when it became game time against high-level competition, we weren't ready.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
We are looking ahead to next week as the Maryland NAACP is demanding changes to education. The Civil Rights Group is meeting this week about the, quote, critical status of African American students. The group points to lagging academic achievement and students graduating without necessary proficiency. In Maryland, 2 of the lowest performing school systems are in Baltimore City and Prince George's County, which have the most African American students.
This is a situation where African American children who can learn just like white children or any other children, okay, come into systems and they're not educated.
Well, the Maryland NAACP conference in Linthicum Heights is this Thursday and Friday. Fox 45 News and Project Baltimore will be there. As we've reported, there's currently a lawsuit against Baltimore City schools about a lack of students learning the proficiencies they need for graduation. Renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump has joined that lawsuit. This past November, a judge denied a request from the city to dismiss the lawsuit filed by a Baltimore City couple. They claim city schools is wasting taxpayer dollars.
I'm Chris Pabst. Thanks for watching. Here's another story to watch. Also, if you have a story...
Okay. I don't think it's just Maryland. This is the fears and the warnings of No Child Left Behind coming to fruition. Instead of making our children rise to the occasion, they ease the curriculum and push them out the door. And we wonder why China, India, and many other countries are leaving us in the dust academically. It's like we're jumping ahead. They're beating us in a business. Children can learn early, but it's by choice. And if we're setting our kids up for failure, then that we're probably going to be ahead of what's going on. Now let's take a look back at last year. Where two of the education leaders are under fire in the wake of these investigations by Project Baltimore. Let's take a look.
From Baltimore City Schools.
I think parents would like to hear directly from you, the parents that go to these schools.
All the way up to the Maryland State Department of Education.
Mr. Choger, can we ask you a couple questions about your department removing test scores from the website?
2 leaders under fire in the wake of Project Baltimore investigations, raising serious concerns over transparency and poor judgment.
There cannot continue to be scandal after scandal after scandal.
The state superintendent of schools denies using an encrypted messaging app to communicate with high-level employees.
You've never used Signal for your job? Hey, Coach, do you think you should say something, though, to your players?
A city schools police officer and star football coach facing federal charges.
You want to say something to your players, Coach?
Accused of racking up more than $200,000 in fraudulent overtime. And the district didn't catch it?
The answer is the answer. You know, they put things in place.
Project Baltimore exposed the problems. Will elected leaders finally take action?
The results we're seeing right now are not satisfactory results. I demand better.
We're going to have that story for you when we return. Don't go away. So before the break, there were two of the highest ranking education leaders that are under attack after watching these Project Baltimore investigations. Now you're about to meet the two Baltimore leaders who are under attack after seeing these reports. Are they going to fess up what's going on or are they just going to wash their hands in and say, I don't care, or just walk away? Take a look.
The state school superintendent and the Baltimore City school CEO, two of the highest ranking public officials in Maryland.
And both are under scrutiny following scandals exposed by Project Baltimore. Today, several Maryland lawmakers took a strong stance calling on the state school superintendent to resign immediately.
This I pondered for months, taking this stand, but we need, because of our children.
I think the toxicity of his leadership and the fact that so many people are leaving the education system is a good indicator that he's not the right person for the job.
3 lawmakers, all Republicans from Baltimore County, say Mohammed Chowdhury should step down. In calling for his resignation, the lawmaker cited a series of Project Baltimore investigations. But as Chris Papps explains, Chowdhury isn't the only school leader under fire.
Mohammed Chowdhury earns $310,000 as the Maryland State Superintendent of Schools. He's currently fighting for his job. Dr. Sonia Santelises last year earned $445,000 in total compensation as the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools. Both are stewards of the public trust. Both make decisions that impact thousands of public school students in Maryland. And both are under fire after recent Project Baltimore findings.
Mr. Superintendent, have you ever used the Signal application in commission of your job?
No, thank you much. Appreciate it. For my job?
Well,
most recently, State Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury denied using an encrypted messaging app for his job. But Project Baltimore obtained screenshots showing he used the Signal app to communicate with high-level employees at the Maryland State Department of Education. Some of those messages, like the one where he appeared to berate an employee, support allegations that Chowdhury created a toxic workplace culture.
Transformational leaders actually lead people and don't disparage them.
The state school board is set to vote by the end of this month,
As well as
on whether to offer Chowdhury another contract.
Yeah.
That vote has already been delayed twice, amid serious transparency concerns exposed by Project Baltimore.
He needs to go. There is no way he can repair that trust without coming clean. He showed no evidence that he has any interest in doing so.
So far this year, we've exposed how the Maryland State Department of Education began further redacting state test scores, a move that kept parents from seeing just how poorly many of their schools were performing. We've reported that Superintendent Chowdhury used a secondary email account to conduct business, and that his state-issued cell phone was set to auto-delete text messages after 30 days.
I believe in accountability and I believe in transparency.
Many lawmakers in Annapolis have yet to respond to Project Baltimore's questions about Chowdhury and whether they're concerned about his leadership. But Governor Wes Moore has commented.
Part of the challenge is that, that we have with the structure is that the governor doesn't decide that.
Moore, who appointed 5 members of the state school board, says he has no control over the superintendent's contract, but he does have a strong opinion on his performance.
I want transparency, I want accountability, and I want a superintendent that believes in it and can deliver it. The results we're seeing right now are not satisfactory results. I demand better, and we need to make sure that we're getting better results for our kids.
And I will just continue to say...
Dr. Sonia Santelises is also under scrutiny for scandals in her administration.
What do you say about the charges?
On Friday, Baltimore City Schools police detective and 8-time state champion football coach Lawrence Smith was indicted on federal charges of overtime fraud and tax violations. The indictment alleges what Project Baltimore first reported back in January, that Smith was logging overtime when he appeared to be somewhere else. We found several possible examples, including Facebook Live videos that showed Smith driving a boat on the Chesapeake Bay or coaching football when his overtime form said he was working.
Smith is accused of fraudulently obtaining more than $215,000 in overtime, and the district didn't catch it?
Chris Pabst from Fox 45.
We know the district was aware of our reporting back in January because we tried to get answers about the overtime approval process.
Do you guys have concerns about how the overtime is issued in the police department?
So, I mean, again, just check our statement that we gave you.
But your statement leaves out a lot of really important things. Like, for example, how can a police officer who's driving a boat be putting in a form for overtime?
We can come this way.
Can the school system explain that? I mean, these are taxpayer dollars. And the school system constantly says it doesn't have enough money, but it does appear to be money
Go to the
paid.
statement we gave you, because that's why we answered those questions in the statement.
But the district will not explain why 4 months after we exposed his overtime discrepancies, Smith was promoted to corporal. Dr. Santelises has repeatedly refused to answer our questions about this and a number of other issues.
A former city schools principal told us that your administration is instructing schools to not leave report cards blank.
Make sure
This
that I
is a
present to city
powerful
council.
allegation.
It
The
is,
allegation is that
but
you're
Chris,
falsifying
if you
report cards.
continue to submit questions, we'll answer those.
You'll answer
Calmly
that
and
question?
straight. Absolutely, Chris. Make sure you submit it. So good to see you.
Baltimore City is facing a devastating reality.
From schools where 0 students tested proficient in math, to grade changing and inflated enrollment schemes, the issues Project Baltimore has exposed
Enough is enough.
have prompted protests from community members calling on Santelises to resign.
Tell you, this is what the fight is for.
The state of Baltimore City schools even caught the attention of civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who joined the legal team suing Baltimore City schools, accusing the school system of wasting tax dollars and failing to provide an adequate education to generations of students.
I think parents would like to hear directly from you, the parents that go to these schools.
This is a different system than it was 3 years ago.
But the last time Dr. Santelises agreed to sit down for an interview was 2017, shortly before Fox 45 had to sue the school system for refusing to release public records related to grade changing. A Baltimore judge ruled in our favor, saying the school system willfully and knowingly violated the law.
Good morning, everyone.
And through all of this, Mayor Brandon Scott has supported Dr. Santelises. In 2022, just weeks after an Inspector General report confirmed widespread grade changing in city schools,
Thank you for joining us.
many city politicians gathered to celebrate the superintendent for 6 years on the job, the whole time ignoring the IG's report, which found more than 12,000 failing grades were improperly changed to passing between 2016 and 2020.
When we ask many elected leaders questions about the public school system, they often say no comment because they say they don't have control over the day-to-day operations, which is true. But the mayor of Baltimore appoints 9 of the 12 school board members in the city, and the governor appoints all 14 members to the state board. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
That brings us to our question of the day. Should Governor Moore call for State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry to resign? 100% of voters say yes. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the polls tab to weigh in.
Now that was last year. And if he resigned, he deserves to resign. Everybody cares about education, and the State Department of Education is one of the biggest culprits. Give us more money. This, that, and the third. You don't need to be doing stuff that's going to get you in trouble. Doing stuff like that is going to get you into a lot of trouble. Do better, Maryland. If you look at all the test scores, and I mean, if you tell teachers it's all about test scores, they'll probably shut you out saying, well, we don't focus in on test scores. I know what my kids are learning when I look in their eyes. It's like, it's like this. How do you know if your child's learning anything if you don't test them and compare? I know my kids are learning when I look in their eyes. Give me a break. That kind of answer would even make parents. I mean, if you're a parent, then That's a statement from a parent. A parent can make that statement and no one would even care. But the scores are so low that the Baltimore school CEO questioned about all those math scores. Just take a look. This was about a year. This was a year ago.
And math. We gotta get this right. We just need to get in the room and make sure our kids are proficient in math. And the only way we're gonna do it is at least have these hearings.
But during the nearly 2-hour council meeting, members didn't spend much time talking about math scores.
That's right. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps has the questions we still have following tonight's hearing.
Our live team coverage begins with Mackenzie Frost. So Mackenzie, what did the council talk about?
Well, there was a lot of talk about summer programming activities, even some questions about juvenile violence and schools overall. But when it comes to who's responsible for allowing these students to continue to struggle in the classroom, these city council members didn't really demand answers. Inside City Hall,
Good afternoon.
City School CEO Sonia Santelises in the hot seat and quick to set the theme of her defense.
That the state of Maryland, not just Baltimore City, has math challenges.
Most of the evening spent on issues unrelated to the plummeting math scores.
As we head into this summer, where I feel a lot of anxiety and concern about particularly safety.
But a few math questions peppered into the equation.
I'm going to switch back to math now. How is this connected to your high dosage of tutoring in schools?
Math is still a complicated subject. What is the process of holding someone back a grade and or 2 grades because they're just not getting to that level in order to progress?
One of the questions for me is not necessarily about holding them back. What does work, right, is when you had a different learning plan and extended time.
After the hearing, Santelises again painting Baltimore City as part of a bigger problem when we questioned her about the poor performing schools.
We are within the state of Maryland that had the lowest performance for 4th graders on NAEP.
Do you think that the parents of these kids in these 23 schools care that other students are failing when their students are the ones that are struggling to succeed? What do you say to families who are dealing with this, and especially when you say that you knew this was going to happen?
Well, we knew, Mackenzie, that the math was a challenging area. One of the things that we've said to parents is we have doubled down on tutoring, on after-school opportunities.
Do you take any accountability for these scores?
Absolutely.
As for Councilman Robert Stokes, chair of this committee and the one who called for the hearing.
Well, it was a good start. I mean, actually coming before the council, but the community also to find out what the school system doing to address the math scores in the city.
Do you think they're doing enough?
No, it's a lot of work.
Are you satisfied in the CEO's ability to do this job and to steer the school system moving forward given all of the challenges that lie ahead?
There's a lot of challenges. It's a lot on the plate.
She's not new to this though.
The hard questions will be asked, but I want to see some data.
We didn't really hear a lot of hard questions.
Well, I talked about the hiring of tutors. I talked about mental health specialists, but I also talked about school commissioners. Nobody put the school commissioner before the council. So those are hard questions or things that nobody ever asks.
Going back to Santelises though, do you have faith in her ability to lead the school system?
Well, it's not me having faith, it's calling before the council.
But you can have a say. You're a councilman, you're chair of this committee. Your opinion has a lot of weight.
At this point, because we just had our first hearing, yes. I want to see what happens after these couple of hearings, and then let's see where it goes.
Stokes says he will bring the CEO back again for another hearing, but doesn't know when. Meanwhile, kids continue to go to school and some struggle to learn at grade level, looking to prepare for their next step before the final bell rings on their educational career in Baltimore City. Now, the Councilman Robert Stokes says that he does plan to call another hearing, bringing the School Board of Commissioners before his committee to answer questions. He says he wants to learn their role in this problem to see if the commissioners can help these students better prepare for their educational future. When that hearing will be held, he says he doesn't really know yet. We're live in Baltimore. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, Chris Papps with Project Baltimore joins us now live in studio to weigh in on the hearing tonight.
Chris, you've been reporting on the failures within some Baltimore City schools for years. What's your takeaway from tonight?
I think one of my main takeaways here is that this meeting was called in response to Project Baltimore's reporting on the 23 schools in Baltimore City that did not have any students who tested proficient in math last year. That was the purpose of this hearing, but yet the parents and the families and the thousands of kids that attend those schools, there was not a direct message to them. Dr. Sonia Santelises and City Council didn't speak directly to those families and to those kids and even to those teachers or administrators, and that's what this whole thing was supposed to be about tonight.
Yeah, we're looking at one of the moms that you just spoke to not long ago. Her son is in one of these 23 schools.
Yeah.
So poor math test scores, not a new problem in the city. Do you think the plan that they are shaping, that they have in place, is enough to turn it around with more math teachers, tutors, other things?
Extended learning days, summer learning, things like that. Well, I mean, I think that if you take that question and you apply it to what we've reported on for years. So in 2017, we looked at the test scores, and we found 13 high schools in Baltimore City in 2017, 13, that had 0 students test proficient in math. This is not a new problem. And what the school system is talking about doing now are very similar things to what they talked about doing 6 years ago when Project Baltimore reported on those 13 schools. So it's kind of, what is new about their approach now, and why do we think it's going to work now when it hasn't worked very well, it appears, in the past? And that was another question that wasn't answered, or asked, I should say, tonight in the hearing.
Chris, there was the opportunity for public comment tonight, but apparently no one signed up to speak. Do you have any idea why?
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. So these hearings are about thousands of kids and parents in these 23 schools. It's a lot of people that you would think would have been interested in this. There were no people that signed up for public comment at the hearing and no people that signed up virtually. And that really stuck out to me. So, Kai, Mary, you remember last year, City Council held a hearing concerning Augusta Fells, about the GO students and the grade changing at Augusta Fells. And remember when parents called in and they were told they were not allowed to ask the CEO questions? You guys remember that? And people were calling in and they were yelling, and they were like, what is the point of this if I can't even ask my CEO of the school system questions? I think a situation like that would turn a lot of people off and say, you know what, I'm not sure why I'm calling in, why you guys are even doing this. What's the point? And I kind of felt like nobody at home was watching, nobody cared, because of the way the public was treated a year ago, last time a hearing like this was held.
That's interesting. We may have to dig into that and ask City Council why they think the reason is.
All right. Chris, thank you. Chris Papps reporting.
Thank you.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust current state and local leadership to fix the problems in Baltimore City Public Schools? 99% say no. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Wow. When we come back, that state superintendent we showed you, there's outgoing, there's one as superintendent, and you're also going to meet a Baltimore mother who calls in somebody to fix those city schools. Stay with us. Welcome back to Give Me a Break's Crisis in a Classroom, where we look at some issues that involve your child's education. A few moments ago, we showed you one state superintendent who was forced to resign. Well, great news. Last year, he resigned. He resigned. But was something left out? After 2 years with a state superintendent, he is now stepping down. But is there more to the story than meets the eye? Remember, he violated every single state law, and he denied using the application. But is there more to the case? Once again, here's Chris Papps.
Amit Chaudhary is stepping down after just 2 years as the Maryland State Superintendent of Schools, marking the end of a tumultuous term. In his final goodbye, he penned this op-ed in the Baltimore Sun, touting what he calls critical progress. But Project Baltimore took a closer look at his performance. The op-ed published this week in the Baltimore Sun reflects on Chaudhry's 2+ years leading the State Department of Education and reads as a record of his accomplishments. Among them, Chaudhry cites improvement on state test scores, saying literacy results are better than before the pandemic, and in math, students are showing signs of recovery from COVID learning loss. While literacy rates have improved across the state, lagging math scores continue to raise alarm. Project Baltimore analyzed the spring 2023 state test results and found at least 200 Maryland schools where 5% or fewer students tested proficient in math. We also found 13 Baltimore City high schools where 0 students among those tested scored proficient in math. The op-ed does not address math scores in Baltimore City, but Chaudhry does say grant funding under his leadership helped city schools improve English test scores by 4.5 percentage points in grades 3 through 8. That is also true. But even with the improvement, only 25% of 3rd through 8th graders in Baltimore City schools are proficient in English. That's the lowest in the state by 5 full percentage points.
These schools are 5 minutes from this building.
In June, Chaudhry acknowledged strained relations with lawmakers in Annapolis, even writing an apology letter for his missteps. But in this op-ed, he says he changed the way the Maryland State Department of Education functions, making it an effective operation. That is not what we heard from former employees like Robert Eccles, who testified before the state board, saying Chaudhry's leadership created a toxic workplace culture.
Transformational leaders actually lead people and don't disparage them. They invite feedback and can take criticism without retaliation.
In this op-ed, Chaudhry never says why he's leaving, but his resignation follows a series of Project Baltimore investigations that raise concerns about his leadership.
Mr. Superintendent, have you ever used the Signal application in commission of your job?
I have no thank you much. Appreciate it. For my job,
Well, Project Baltimore first showed you that video last month, exposing how Chaudhry used the encrypted messaging app Signal to conduct state business. We obtained screenshots, some of which appear to show Chaudhry berating an employee, supporting allegations that the superintendent created a toxic workplace culture.
This I pondered for months, taking this stand.
Days after Fox 45 broke that story, 3 Republican lawmakers took a strong stance, calling on Chaudhry to step down immediately.
And if you're not going to have the transparency, let somebody else do it.
At the same time, Governor Wes Moore, a Democrat, also came out strong when asked about Project Baltimore's reporting.
I want transparency, I want accountability, and I want a superintendent that believes in it and can deliver it.
Just 9 days after Project Baltimore exposed how Chaudhry used that encrypted messaging app for work, he announced he would step down. But this was not the first time that he had come under fire. Project Baltimore, this past summer, also reported how Chaudhry used a secondary email account to conduct state business, and that his state-issued cell phone was set to auto-delete text messages after 30 days. 12 of those messages were deleted after Fox 45 filed a public records request to obtain them, a potential violation of state law. Months before that, we exposed how MSDE, without telling the public, removed state test scores from its website, heavily redacted them, and then reposted them. A move that kept parents and taxpayers from seeing how poorly some schools are performing.
Mr. Chaudhry.
That decision by MSDE sparked backlash. But when we tried to question Chaudhry about it,
test scores on the website,
he locked himself behind a door. In the wake of our findings, lawmakers and special interest groups have demanded answers, asking the Attorney General, State Prosecutor, and Inspector General for Education to investigate.
There cannot continue to be scandal after scandal after scandal.
These schools are not thriving.
All of this proved to be too much. Sources within the State Department of Education told us
the school board's support for Choudhury deteriorated with each new Project Baltimore finding. The state superintendent agreed to resign and transition to a new role as senior advisor to the state school board. His $310,000 salary will stay the same until his contract expires in June 2024. Now, the state board will conduct a nationwide search for the next state superintendent of Maryland Public Schools.
The state school board appointed Dr. Carrie Wright as the interim superintendent until a permanent replacement can be found. Dr. Wright served as the Mississippi state superintendent, where she's credited with improving literacy scores. Project Baltimore in the coming weeks will take a closer look at what Dr. Wright did to improve those reading scores in Mississippi, a state that had been struggling for decades. And could those strategies also work in Maryland? I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore. I'm Chris Pabst. Thanks for watching. Here's another story to watch. Also, if you have a story idea, please send us a message.
All right. Here's another part to the story.
Mr. Superintendent, have you ever used the Signal application in commission of your job?
This is Maryland State Superintendent of Schools, Mohammed Choudhury, at a recent state school board meeting.
Well, thank you much. Appreciate it. For my job, well,
Signal is an encrypted messaging app which allows users to set a timer to automatically delete messages. The software, found in the App Store on most smartphones, is marketed as having privacy at its core.
You've never used Signal for your job?
No. The state superintendent told us on the record, publicly, that he does not use the Signal app for his job. But these screenshots suggest otherwise. Project Baltimore obtained these screenshots of conversations between Choudhury and high-ranking employees within the Maryland State Department of Education. Each one is a Signal message sent by Mohammed Choudhury to at least one high-level MSDE employee whose name we are concealing. We received multiple text threads, which the source says were sent between late 2021 and 2022. Choudhury's name is right there, along with his picture. This phone number, which we blurred, is registered to the superintendent. In these messages, Choudhury certainly appears to be talking about work. Take a look at this screenshot. You can see Choudhury set the disappearing message timer to 1 hour, which applies to select messages. Choudhury writes, "All of that teacher assignment stuff is too much." In this Signal message, Choudhury tells an employee a project needs a lot of work, saying, "As of now, I'm not even close to greenlighting anything there." Here, Choudhury appears to berate his employee, saying, "What feels like a waste of time is telling me last minute we are changing survey links when I told you I didn't want to do this." The employee responds, "I don't understand what you see the issue to be." Choudhury replies, "I'll make it easy for you guys. You're not changing it. It's staying as is. Don't meet with me today. Done." That's a directive. Employee, "So cancel the Qualtrics license?" Choudhury, "Yes, I don't give a about Qualtrics at this point." Qualtrics is a data analytics platform used by MSDE. That sounds like work. So why would the superintendent use an encrypted messaging app,
As well as
that auto-deletes his conversations about work? If messages are sent through Signal, parents and taxpayers cannot see what's being said by their state superintendent about public schools. On August 3rd, Project Baltimore filed a public records request for Signal app data on the cell phone of Mohammed Choudhury. This is what we got back. MSDE replied, "There are no documents or records responsive to your request." That's probably because, as far as we can tell, the Signal app is not on Choudhury's state-issued phone. This phone number is his personal number, meaning the state superintendent is using an app to encrypt and erase messages about state business on his personal cell phone.
So we followed up with Chaudhary in an email, asking him to explain the screenshots and why he told us he never used Signal for his job. His answer has now changed.
In a statement, Chaudhary said he used the encrypted messaging app with family and friends. He went on to say he used the app to communicate personal messages with one senior member of his team, adding, "Despite my repeated directives to not message me any official agency business-related matters through the Signal application, this individual continued to try to do so." But is that true? Take a look at this Signal message. You can see it says member SPCI under Chaudhary's name. SPCI, according to our source, stands for Strategic Planning and Continuous Improvement, a group chat including at least 3 MSDE employees communicating through Signal. This is a thread from that group chat. You can see Chaudhary initiates the conversation, even adding employees to the group. And this discussion is not personal. It's about Maryland Leads, a state grant program that helps schools spend federal funds.
Mr. Superintendent, have you ever used the Signal application in commission of your job?
Well, thank you much, appreciate it.
For my job? Well, you've never used Signal for your job?
The state superintendent's contract expires in June 2024. The State Board of Education, in just 2 weeks, will have to vote on whether or not to offer him a new contract. That vote has already been delayed for 2 months amid these serious concerns over transparency and allegations of a toxic workplace culture. Project Baltimore will keep you updated as the situation unfolds. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
With State Superintendent of Schools Mohammed Chowdhury fighting for his job, let's take a look at how he got here. 7 months of Project Baltimore reporting have raised questions over transparency at MSDE. In January, the State Department of Education released the 2022 MCAT state test results. Project Baltimore analyzed that data and in February broke the story of 23 Baltimore City schools where 0 students among those tested were proficient in math. And then weeks later, after that report, MSDE pulled the MCAP data from its website and didn't repost it until March. And then again, when the data reappeared on the MSDE website, it was vastly different. Many data points for the lowest performing schools were replaced with asterisks, making less information available to parents and taxpayers about how public schools are performing. And in April, Project Baltimore attempted to get answers from the superintendent. During a break at MSDE's monthly board meeting, Project Baltimore tried to question Superintendent Chowdhury, but he locked himself behind a door. A month later, Project Baltimore tried again. This time, Chowdhury and the Maryland Board of Education President, Clarence Crawford, spoke with Project Baltimore, but their answers left us with more questions. So Project Baltimore tried a public records request for emails and text messages from the state superintendent. From that request, we learned Chowdhury used a secondary email address for professional business, and his state-issued cell phone was sent to automatically delete text messages after 30 days. Now, through a source, we're learning Chowdhury uses Signal, an encrypted messaging app, as part of his job, even though he told Project Baltimore just weeks ago that he doesn't.
I'm Chris Pabst. Thanks for watching. Here's another story to watch.
Well, it leads you to know that somebody is lying here. We will be right back. We've been showing you screenshots of text messages throughout one state superintendent in Maryland. But does that violate state law? Once again, Chris Pats.
These messages were sent between Maryland Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury and high-ranking employees within the Maryland State Department of Education. Each one a conversation about work, everything from teacher assignments and state grants to government contracts, and each one sent through Signal.
It matters because government accountability matters, right? That is the core of this country.
Tina Williams-Caroma, founder and CEO of T-Secure, a Baltimore cybersecurity company.
There's a big concern around privacy.
Signal is an encrypted messaging app which allows users to set a timer to automatically delete messages. It's marketed as having privacy at its core. But when apps like Signal are used for government business, privacy comes at a cost.
There needs to be appropriate government oversight.
Mr. Superintendent, have you ever used the Signal application in condition of your job?
No, thank you much. Appreciate it. For my job, well, Project Baltimore obtained these screenshots of multiple Signal messages sent between late 2021 and 2022. They were sent by Mohammed Chaudhry to at least one high-level employee at the Maryland State Department of Education. We are concealing their name. But when we questioned Chaudhry about it at a recent state board meeting, he told us he never used Signal for work.
You've never used Signal for your job?
Thank you. On August 3rd, Project Baltimore filed a public records request for Signal app data on the cell phone of Mohammed Chaudhry. MSDE replied, "There are no documents or records responsive to your request." That's probably because the Signal app is not on his state-issued phone. This is his personal phone number, and in most cases, the public does not have a right to see what the superintendent is doing on his personal cell phone.
Does it concern you that the highest-ranking public education official in the state is using Signal to conduct state business?
Yeah, I think it's concerning to me that some of the information and records may not be accessible and discoverable.
Even if the superintendent were using Signal on his state-issued cell phone, the messages are encrypted, meaning only the people involved in the conversation can read them. And if those messages are set to disappear, they can't be accessed under open records law. Parents and taxpayers cannot see what is being said by their state superintendent about public schools.
Communication or means that makes those records potentially inaccessible.
In a statement this week, Chaudhry told Fox 45 he used a Signal app to communicate personal messages with one senior member of his team whom he says was directed not to send work-related matters through Signal. But Project Baltimore obtained screenshots that showed Chaudhry was regularly communicating with multiple MSDE employees in Signal group chats. There are state laws regarding record retention, and using apps like Signal could lead to potential violations.
Yes.
Which is why Williams-Caroma says government organizations need clear policies on how employees communicate about taxpayer business.
I think it's incumbent upon the organization to outline what is acceptable and what's not. Leaders don't just get to act independent of oversight, like the public are the watchers of the watchers.
Project Baltimore reached out to Governor Wes Moore and other lawmakers, asking if they have concerns over Chaudhry's leadership amid our recent reporting that certainly raises serious questions about transparency. We're still waiting to hear back, but keep in mind, Chaudhry is fighting for his job. The State Board of Education is set to vote by the end of this month on whether to offer him a new contract. And we will be staying on this story. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Fox 45 News is taking the pulse of the people. Do you think State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry should get a new contract? So far, 93% of those who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
I'm Chris.
And we already know he resigned because of those because of those reports. Finally tonight,
Attorney in Los Angeles says the
prosecutor is now speaking out about the letter written by Eric Menendez. But the question is Is this a fake? Take a look.
Prosecutor in the Menendez trial is raising questions about the authenticity of the now famous letter that alleges the brothers were molested by their father.
I'd love to know when that letter was written.
You don't think it was written when they say it was written?
No, I don't. I think people fabricate things.
Former prosecutor Pamela Vazanich spoke to Dateline's Keith Morrison. Eric Menendez says he sent the letter to his cousin 8 months before the brothers gunned down their parents at their Beverly Hills mansion in 1989. The letter says, "I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, but it's worse for me now. It's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in." The letter is signed with a sketch of a Christmas tree and snowman, indicating it was written around Christmas time. A journalist who's covered the Menendez case since day one says he discovered the letter in 2018 when he was searching through the cousin's belongings after he died of a drug overdose. The critics now question whether that letter is fake. Former Beverly Hills Police Detective Tom Linehan investigated the brutal double murders of Kitty and Jose Menendez.
Do you think the allegations of molestation are fabricated?
Absolutely. Yes, I do.
He says during his investigation, it never came up.
Lyle and Eric, they never said that. Family members never said that. People that knew them never said anything like that, even remotely.
LA's DA, who's been supporting the brothers' release but lost his bid for re-election, has cited the letter as one of the reasons why they should go free. But even he says he can't prove it's real.
Have you been able to authenticate that letter?
We haven't. This is about 35 years of rehabilitation.
In the Dateline special that airs tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, the former prosecutor has this chilling message for any Menendez supporters who seek to do her harm.
I have harmed myself. I took lessons even. Oh, I went to the range and used the gun. I went out and bought a Mossberg shotgun, which is what they used to kill their parents. I figured it was easy to learn.
Sorry about that. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.